Oh, yeah, sorry. We don't have to.
Because we don't have the interview today.
Madison, Wisconsin is as good as it gets if you are like me and you love the college sports.
This is the Jump Around with Jim Rutledge and Pablo Iglesias, streaming live on the ESPN Madison YouTube channel.
Madison down the sidelines. Can they catch him? No! The Badgers answer instantly. There will be no undefeated champion on Wisconsin with an unbelievable stretch drive to the championship game.
Gordon again! Inside the 5, touchdown! What a performance by Melvin Gordon!
Chucky Hepburn, Big Ten on the line. Yes!
It's over. The Wisconsin Badgers win 17-9. They are the first Big Ten team ever to win successive Rose Bowl games.
That is the best college sports town in America.
And it is the best Badger dedicated show in America.
Come on, you're only going to give a little bit of the it is?
What's that?
Come on.
I don't do it is on this show.
Well, you just did the it is right there.
Oh,
Come
sorry,
on. Can we get a little bit?
Yeah! It is the best Badger dedicated show around on the ESPN Madison and ESPN Milwaukee YouTube channels. This is the Jump Around. I'm Jim Rutledge alongside Pablo Iglesias. And we got a lot to get into today. We are thrilled to be joined by Nicole Auerbach, she from NBC, formerly of The Athletic. She joins the show a little bit later. And
Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, she
loved her.
Full pullback curtain. We talked to her earlier, and she had some really good information. And then after that interview, stick around because we are going to reveal a guest that we're going to have on a special edition Friday show, which will air at 2 o'clock on Friday. It is a Badger freshman. So you'll want to hear from that person coming up a little bit later in the show. We're going to tease it after the interview with Nicole Auerbach, and then we'll have plenty of other great things to get into.
Quite the tease from Jim Rutledge.
You know me, Mr. Radio, even this is on YouTube. All right.
Mr. Digital.
I'm going to come out.
Mr. Worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide. I'm going to come out and make a statement that is not a report. I think Carter Smith is going to play for the Wisconsin Badgers against Washington. That's just a feeling I have. That's good news, Riley Yauk behind the glass.
It's still dramatic, though. It's
okay.
dramatic.
Well, you make that sound like it's, I don't know. Yeah, it's the season turn all of a sudden. Well, hey, maybe this could be.
And so the Badgers are not covering themselves in glory, Pablo, in the passing game. They are second worst. So we're not.
Oh, we're not the worst. Oh, good.
In
Being
Power
first,
4,
you're last.
And actually, this is even more depressing. They're 125th out of 134 teams in the FBS for passing the ball. So I think passing should be in air quotes. Danny O'Neal has not been good. Hunter Simmons has somehow been worse. Billy Edwards doesn't want to play for the Badgers anymore or can't play for the Badgers anymore or something in between those two, which leads everyone turning their eyes to Carter Smith. And Pablo, before I get to you, who is Carter Smith? All right, he's from Florida, about 6'3", 197 pounds. He is a dual threat QB in high school, 8,700 yards passing, 87 touchdowns, 2,600 yards rushing, 56 rushing touchdowns. Originally committed to Michigan, and the Badgers just lost the recruit to Michigan. But he later decommitted and committed to Wisconsin, viewed as one of the top recruits in Wisconsin's 2025 class. And he is not playing yet. He has the title of a project. Strong arm and mobility, needs growth in processing and decision-making and leadership. But I'll be honest, that sounds like both the other Badger quarterbacks, and I would not call them strong-armed or mobile. So, or maybe somewhat mobile. So, you know what?
Danny O'Neal almost feels too mobile.
Right. He feels wobbly out there. So, can he get there? Will he play? What will he look like? I love the idea of giving – Hunter Simmons was one of last time? One of 13 at one point?
Yes. Yeah. For 12 yards. He had as many incomplete passes as he did attempts.
Yeah, just
incompletions. As
like you go into the archives at Camp Randall or Barry Alvarez's office, and you dust off blow off the old dust off the playbook, and
just sitting on there like a beam of light is just sitting on the book, right?
And just hand the ball off to whatever healthy running backs you have, and bleed that clock out. and let Carter Smith run and obviously Brooks is a really heady player, run the Brooks Bollinger offense of Brooks. Did not have a strong arm, but he could move, and run the dang, remember the Titans offense for all I care, because you can't pass the ball anyways. So you might as well just give up on the farce that is passing the ball at the University of Wisconsin and let Carter Smith go out there and be an athlete and just come up with like 20 plays that he can run really well and just run those 20 plays. You can't be worse. You can't. I guess you could be one spot worse. That's you're literally at the point of rock bottom as a passing offense.
If anything, this gives fans something to be excited about. This gives people to actually go into Camp Randall with some juice. Do you know if you're going to come out 0-4, or do you think like you can come out with a win? That's beside the point. Maybe you will just go 0-4 regardless, but this gives fans some type of excitement if you do decide to go with Carter Smith. As you mentioned, too, this is the guy that they flipped from Michigan. Like, there was already a lot of buzz. I felt pretty good seeing him in fall camp. I only got to see a few practices, but I'm like, is he a finished product? Is he a polished product? Not exactly, but also it's like, this kid looks like he can sling the pill already as a true freshman. I know that he came in with a lot of high praise, but why not give fans some excitement right now? Why not do this? Why not just do it now? What do you have to lose? He's under the if he plays 4 games, like that's I think if you play more than 4 games and a bowl game including, like that's wishful thinking here. That's a lot of hope, but if they were to make it to the bowl game, like that would not count towards the losing your red shirt. Like he is in that window now. So why not pull the trigger? Why not go for it? Like, let's just get some excitement here because let's be real here. How many people are checked out right now? How many people have just frankly given up? This gives you some type of hope. This gives you some type of opportunity. Why not do it? Let's just see what happens. I look up real quick with Carter Smith, Wisconsin. 4 different articles basically saying either alluding to they should make the change or is Carter Smith going to legitimately get a chance? That's the buzz right now. So why not do it?
Yeah, there's really there's no reason not to. You guys both talked about it. And on the off chance he's good, I mean, I'm pretty sure the knock on him coming into the season was that he just was struggling to understand the playbook, which I feel like's pretty normal for a freshman, as we have maybe heard before. And, like, worst case scenario, he's just as bad as Hunter Simmons. Like, there's literally nowhere to go for this offense but up. And at least it's a young guy who it makes sense that he's making these mistakes. It's not a redshirt senior at quarterback playing like an FCS level talent, which Hunter Simmons is. So there's just seemingly no reason not to at least give Carter Smith a shot. Should give the offense a jolt to energy, just like we saw from Gideon Atuka, a freshman who got, or he might be a sophomore, a young guy who got his opportunity to make a splash in the offense. Just let the young kids play at this point. The season is a lost cause. Let's just have some fun.
Well, and it would speak to, I guess, lack of development ability if Carter Smith isn't significantly better than he was in the spring or even in the fall. I understand the fall, obviously, and then I understand that you can't do as much, but you had a bye week here. This is why it's now or never. Either Carter Smith is ready to play, you had a bye week, you could do the entire week of practice, and you could do what you did with Hunter, and Carter can play some. I'm fine in this case of Carter not having the whole plate in front of him, at least not against Washington. If you want to say we're going to ease it into it, and maybe Carter is the actual starter only against Minnesota, but we're going to work him more and more into the game plan, and see what he can do. The Badgers tried to do something like this a long time ago with Kurt Phillips. He ended up getting hurt, but he had horrendous knees. I feel like he blew out both knees twice. So that was just unfortunate for him. He just didn't have the right body to be able to be the quarterback the Badgers needed to be. Weirdly, I feel like his dad was like a knee surgeon. Like, well, that was the other. That was like the other like horrible irony of it as well. I could be wrong on that, but anyways, I think Carter Smith deserves, and Badger fans deserve to see Carter Smith. Let's move on into a reoccurring segment we have here, Coach's Corner. And this one's a little different. Last week we brought up Brian Kelly, who was let go by LSU. This time I wanted to bring about a guy who I'm drinking the full Kool-Aid. Now, I want to say, first of all,
what flavor?
Jason Eck flavored. Jason Eck flavored Kool-Aid. Whatever that means. I was on the Lance Leipold bandwagon, and I still would love Lance Leipold. We do talk to Nicole Auerbach about Lance Leipold, and she had wonderful things to say about him, and I would be over the moon. My 2 concerns with Lance is, one, he's a little bit older, but like at this point in Wisconsin, looks like it could be a long-term job to fix. But more importantly, he's at Kansas, and Kansas wants to keep him. He's not going to be cheap. And not that Jason Eck will be cheap, but like Lance Leipold is now a proven program changer at Buffalo, a proven champion at Whitewater, and he turned the tide at Kansas. They were terrible when he got there. Now they're a perennial bowl-eligible team. They're always right in the mix there. He has turned that program in a positive direction. So that would be, it might just be harder to get Lance Leipold, especially the Badgers apparently are a broke-ass school that can't afford to pay anyone. So got to account for
We're trying,
that.
though.
And this has nothing against Jason Eck as far as him as a coach. I think he's a young, up-and-coming coach. I think he's 48 years old. He played for Barry Alvarez. He was a GA at Wisconsin. He's the head coach in New Mexico. They just became bowl eligible. And he played from 95 to 98, part of the 1998 Big Ten champions that also went on to win the Rose Bowl. And he's from La Crosse, Wisconsin. And he won, I believe, at Idaho and turned that program around. And now he went to New Mexico, turned that program around. He obviously understands the culture. He can reinforce the identity of the Badgers. He can reinforce the connections with former Badger players. He's got a proven track record as a program builder. He's a player-centric coach. And in this day and era, I think that's exactly what you need. And I'm not saying that Fick isn't these things. And then the fact that he's been winning at every level is the main reason. And then the cherry on top is that Badger fans need to be given some red meat. And that's a former Badger player, former Badger assistant with ties to Barry. It's not the direct Barry Alvarez coaching tree, but go back to this, go back to what's worked, because it was Barry into Brett, and then obviously a little break off there for Gary, and then into Paul, who, oh, by the way, might be coaching Oregon State in the future. But that's a different thing for a different day. Good luck to Paul.
leading the Beavers.
I hope he does it. I know he's got time. He's got ties to there. I think he was with Mike Riley a couple times at Oregon State, and I would love to see Paul get another chance. But Jason Eck, I honestly feel like, and I'm not saying Jason Eck isn't worth the money, but getting the coach to jump from New Mexico to Wisconsin and coming home, you might get a little bit more of a discount there. The buyout could be different for New Mexico, and again, it's just a bigger jump. You're bringing a Power 4 coach and Leipold from Kansas to Wisconsin. That's harder to do, in my opinion, as far as cost efficiency than it would be to bring Jason Eck, who's younger and coming from New Mexico.
So let me ask you this. When you say worth the money, you're talking about is Jason Eck worth paying out Luke Fickell in this massive buyout, right?
Well, but I'm also saying Jason Eck's money. Like, Lance Leipold could be...
Oh, and probably what his payout is at New Mexico.
Right, but but I'm not even payout, like what you got to pay him to come in here. So Lance Leipold probably gets close to Fickell money, and so Eck could get it's not going to be a dramatic discount, but maybe $3 to $5 million less per year.
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden, if we're penny pinching, apparently, like that matters.
It would take some loops, a lot of hoops to jump through. But let's be honest, it's not like that. This isn't a big tire fire to begin with.
Well, honestly, not to cut you. Another hoop to jump through is I don't know if Lance Leipold would want to leave Kansas. I feel like they handle NIL better.
Yeah.
Like I would hope that Wisconsin is better in position for NIL than New Mexico. So I don't know, maybe.
I'm all in on Eck. I'm all in. If this is the move that you want to go for it, if you want to try to throw the house at it, again, it's Lance Leipold has proven, if anything, that resume only matters so much and where you coached previously only matters so much. It's about how you develop that success. It's about how you build a program. And obviously he's shown that he can do that with some longevity at Kansas, and it clearly shows that Jason Eck is moving up that ladder. Just because he did it at an FCS level, again, that doesn't mean that he should be pushed away. We need to look at what success is and just define it at that at the end of the day. If you are building a good cultured program, if you are doing that, then why not go for Jason Eck? I understand, again, from the money side and what the dollars look like with Fickell's payout, with probably more than likely if you were to potentially poach from New Mexico, what that looks like. There are a lot, as we said, a lot of loops to jump through, but I would be all in because you mentioned he's a lacrosse guy. He has been with a Wisconsin Badger team that has been a Rose Bowl champion. He has that new attitude. He's offensive-minded. He's fun. He's electric. Riley and I were even talking about, too, with the video when they were bowl eligible. It looked like he had he had a pillow pocket or something like that in the upper lip.
He just looks like a fun guy. He looks like a guy you would have a beer with at a local establishment here in Madison. He looks like a Wisconsin guy because he is.
Yeah, and none of this is pushing Luke Fickell out of here and saying that he's not a Wisconsin guy, but more of, again, if we've talked about this so many times of what are those boxes that we need to check, and consistently we talk about somebody who is Wisconsin, who knows the culture, all of those things, who knows what a winning culture can really be about. Man, oh man, I get the chills just talking about it right now.
See, I wonder, I'm putting on my conspiracy cap right here.
Okay.
Is Chris McIntosh waiting to hire Jason Eck next cycle? I understand Eck's getting a little bit of buzz right now, but it seems pretty clear that Fickell is at bare minimum getting one more season. And obviously the ramifications with that going to be probably cost the Badgers a lot of money, at least in the short term. But there's a chance if Fickell cannot turn it around and if Jason Eck is not hired in this cycle, that it could end up benefiting the Badgers long term if they end up waiting and snagging Eck. They let go of Fickell if just nothing changes. He's gone. Then they bring in Eck, and then Mac can make this triumphant return. Oh, look, it's one of my O-line buddies from back in the day. We're both Barry guys. See, Wisconsin football is going to be back. And you could actually sell that to the fan base, and McIntosh would save his job. So I wonder, potentially, is that what's running through his mind right now in trying to just stall until, and then Fickell's buyout's less too.
Okay.
So
Tinfoil hat Riley.
If that's what's running through Mac's head, fire him.
Exactly. I agree.
Because
but
I don't. There are so many coaching jobs available, and yeah, Eck's not going to get the LSU job or Penn State job. But where is that coach coming from? Like the fact that Jason Eck, if I'm betting on it, and I'm not saying he's like unloyal, like he's program hopping, but that's what a program like New Mexico is for, and they know that Jason Eck very well could get the opportunity Nebraska if Matt Rule he's not going to wait around for you. So that's my concern, and he's only going to get more expensive. So again, if that is your plan, just fire. And I'll be honest, and not to get too negative here, but the only way that Fickell goes, you're probably right, Riley, is Chris goes too.
Yep.
And I don't know who makes those decisions, but someone comes through and said, this team won 2 damn games. You're both gone.
Yeah.
And we'll bring in my guy Pat Chun from he's at Washington now.
Oh, that'd be electric.
He's successful at FAU, successful at Washington State, successful at Washington with his NIL. Pat Chun with Jason Eck. Write it down, take a picture to the championship.
Sharpie it. Also, Brett Roll in the YouTube chat, Jimbo Fisher. I'm not.
That's a person.
Yep, I'm not a fan of Jimbo Fisher.
He's a coach.
Appreciate the thought.
Again, it's just more of one, he's going to be expensive, he's a name, and 2, I want someone young, energetic, and wanting to get after it. All right, let's move forward to our clip of the week.
Around these parts, there's only time for the best of the Badgers.
We don't know exactly where we are right now.
Why don't you own the Wisconsin football team?
We need to play better significantly.
They're spoiled rotten.
This is the clip of the week on the Jump Around.
Go someplace else. Go boo in a bar.
How do we like that open, guys? Big voice. We're in. That's a work in progress. So we found an Australian football commentator in the meantime.
This is the Premier League right now.
What was that voice?
Footy.
It was an AI Australian soccer commentator. I gave it a script, and that's what came out. So
I kind of love it. All right.
The computers are taking over.
But now you heard a snippet of it in the open. Here is our clip of the week, our first inaugural with the open.
Right. You own Burnley and Espanol. Right. Why don't you own the Wisconsin football team? I see Willie Compton giving speeches and donating his time and everything over there in Nebraska. You're both red. You're both in the middle of America. You're potentially competing for the same type of players. Feels like you got to step up and maybe sell one of those soccer teams so you can invest directly into Luke Fickell's pockets in that team. Have you thought about that?
We need to play better. Yes, we do. Significantly.
Why don't you go give a speech?
I did. Didn't work.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry. Right. Let's move along.
That is our clip of the week.
Yeah. The whole thing was awkward. Again, nobody likes to spend someone else's, or nobody likes when someone's trying to spend their money for them, which was a little bit awkward there with JJ. And JJ did speak to the team. I still have this working theory that guys like J.J. Watt and Melvin Gordon and T.J. Watt and Russell Wilson need to be shown a lot more love, and I think Fickell's maybe starting to learn that. It could be too little too late, but it's not even – again, I've talked about this before. Like, you're right. J.J. Watt's got money. He doesn't have John Menard money, the owner of Menards. And a little birdie told me that Menards has felt like they've never been seriously approached by University of Wisconsin, at least for the NIL stuff. And so that's where the disconnect comes in. Because, John Menard. There's also ABC Supply. There's that.
Diane Hendricks.
Thanks. That's what I'm thinking
she's
of.
like
Yes.
one of the 10th richest women in the country.
John Menard is worth $25 billion.
Jeez.
So, yeah. And yes, Hendricks is up there as well. Yep. Maybe now the Epic name is escaping me as well. But
I
don't
know the
So
name. But
there's a lot of cash
that's
there.
literally in the backyard.
Yes.
In the
Big old
backyard.
cash flow. I will throw on my tin foil hat like Riley did in the last one with the conspiracy. Just to add on to that, watching
Judith Faulkner.
Watching Packers-Steelers Sunday Night Football, when they do the starting lineups, always electric, always cool. And you have T.J. Watt and you have Keanu Benton, who, yes, they did reportedly, they do those intros at the start of the season, but neither of them mentioned the University of Wisconsin. Neither of them mentioned that they are Badgers. So it's not pointing at them, but more so. Also, T.J. Watt was wearing a Pitt hat. T.J. Watt was wearing a Pitt hat if you go back and look at that, too. So if that's what you're wearing and that's the way you want to give out, hey, your elementary school or your preschool or whatever. But man, it's like we talk about this of the brand itself. If you don't want to rep the University of Wisconsin, and I'm not accusing them of not wanting to, but if you want to go a different route and wear a different college hat, something seems pretty sus there.
Yeah.
Something seems pretty weird to me.
I think J.J. Watt said a lot without saying anything in that clip, and it's that none of these alumni are proud to say that they're Wisconsin Badgers anymore. They're not proud to be affiliated with this Wisconsin football program. And that is a major, major issue that needs to change ASAP. And at this point, like you said, Jim, it might be too little too late for Coach Fickell to start reaching out right now.
All right, let's talk a little hoops. Love that open there, Riley. Great job.
Nice.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Footy continues next week.
Badger basketball, probably nobody's aware. They're playing some games. But Pablo is aware. He was out at one of the games, and I am excited for this team. It's just they're playing teams you've never heard of. Like, is this a scrimmage? The Oklahoma game obviously had some buzz to it. But Pablo, you got a chance to see them recently. Give me one word and keep it under 60 seconds to describe the Wisconsin Badgers basketball program this year.
The one word I would use is lethal. 96-64 win over Campbell Monday. They play Northern Illinois Friday. I would use lethal, but still a work in progress for this team. John Blackwell, 31 points. He looks polished. He looks ready to go. There was a lot of confidence that he gained from the NBA Combine experience. He wants to be similar to what John Tonje was from a confidence standpoint, a guy who's willing to take the shots, step up on defense, do all the things. But with this team is what I love what Greg Gard had said too. There's water in the gas tank. He had said that this team sputtered a lot in the first game, but this also looks like, again, a team with 9 new guys on the roster. They are able to capitalize, end on a 29-2 win, and a game that felt like it was super ugly. Why I feel like they're lethal. They still did not play their best game and somehow still came out with 96 points. Again, it's not like a top-tier Big Ten school, but still, if you don't feel like you're playing at your best and you score 96 points, that's why I feel like Wisconsin basketball is going to be super lethal this season. All
right, I'm going with Sweet. They're going to the Sweet 16. And it's all because of Nick Boyd, and not just because of the type of player he is. The FAU Final Four team of a couple years ago, Jonell Davis went to Arkansas. They got to the Sweet 16 last year. Nick Boyd went to San Diego State, Sweet 16 last year. Obviously, Vlad Golden, Michigan. Sweet 16. And then Elijah Martin, the other starter on that team, won the national championship for Florida. So Nick Boyd is guaranteeing the Badgers are making the Sweet 16. He's not. I'm doing it for him, but his presence on this team, and I'm joking a little bit about like the good luck of it. But Nick Boyd, then my understanding, if I have this right, played in a Final Four, and then the tournament the following year, and then I think they missed the tournament, and then Sweet 16, and so now he is at Wisconsin. So the guy is tournament proven. He has played in more games in the tournament than I think Greg Gard has probably coached in as a head coach. Nick Boyd has played in. So he's a veteran of the tournament, and he's a true point. And we saw the effects in Game 1 when Blackwell went off. And that's all because of what Nick Boyd can do for this team and taking the having to be the point guard out of Blackwell's hand is so important. This team is going to Sweet 16.
There was one play, too, where he came in on a double team.
Is this part of your 60 seconds?
No. Real quick. Awesome on both ends. Able to make the steal, go down coast to coast, looked confident in that, too. So that's why I said to you, he's an absolute dog, as Ken Levicka said.
Yes. Ken Levicka, the play-by-play voice for Florida Atlantic University, who joined us when we learned that Nick Boyd was coming to Wisconsin. Let's get to the Twitter portal.
It's time for the Badgers Twitter portal.
Still the old intro for the Twitter portal. Maybe when we get the big voice guy on the new clip of the week, we'll update the Twitter portal intro as well. But today, I know you guys saw this. There was a massive saga, I put it, a discussion, a debate amongst colleges thanks to some data from an excellent reporter by the name of Matt Brown. Let's take a look at his initial findings that he released, I believe, on Monday. So they're about the alcohol sales for colleges so far this football season through, I believe it was August, September, and October. So, on his initial findings, despite how poorly this season has been for the Wisconsin Badgers, they still just crushed it, absolutely dominated, running every other school out of the gym. They sold 255,000 units and made over $3 million just so far this season on alcohol. Nebraska, Tennessee, Minnesota, Michigan, Indiana, etc. following suits. However, as we all know, with Wisconsin football this season, nothing good can last. So he released the next day the unfortunate news that he had the wrong information for Wisconsin. It's really hard to see on this tweet. However, he had last year's statistics for Wisconsin. Oh. And that is why they were in first place by such a wide margin. Wisconsin is actually in 8th place right now.
Still fighting for a playoff.
You know what? I've got
still in the playoff.
Per capita, as far as people showing up to the game and drinking, we're number one. I will die on that hill. Nobody's going to the games anymore, so number 8 is worthwhile.
I believe it. So that was the initial information. That was the
hell of a setup.
Unfortunate. Yes, the correction. What was your initial reaction when you saw the first report?
Of course. That was
nice. That was it.
Yawn, obviously.
What about after the correction then?
That was like fake news. This is lies. It's number one.
Well, it's unfortunate where it was like you see it at the top. Well, we lose, we booze, and now you know what to do after this. We lose and we booze, and let's get back up to the top now.
Exactly. Yeah, I think like everyone, I was also just like, oh, of course we're number one. At least we're winning at something. And then when he released the second set of data, I was like, okay, that actually makes more sense for how little the fans have been showing up this season. So we have some reactions here from across the Twitterverse. Big Cat especially was pissed off. This is BS. How do you mess up this bad? This is jail. Agreed. Johnny Badger, we had one thing to be happy about. Now that's been ripped away from us. Thanks, Matt. In guard we trust. Nebraska obviously paid you off to lower our data. Real journalism is dead. And Tampa 2 college football. I feel lied to, Matt. Also feel bad for Wisconsin fans because they finally thought they had won something worthwhile this year just to get that taken from them too. So my final question for this Twitter portal for you guys. Have we officially hit rock bottom as a fan base now after we can't even outdrink the country anymore?
Nope. I will go back to the Simpsons meme. This is the worst day of my life. Nope. It is your worst day of your life so far as a Badgers fan.
Pick yourself back up by starting Carter Smith. That's all I'll say. Just do that. Give us hope.
All right. We need it. We need it right now because we're in dire straits as a fandom, and this was some devastating information. But that was the big story, and that was our Badgers Twitter portal.
And we're excited to be joined by Nicole Auerbach coming up here in a second. And don't forget, afterwards, we're going to give the reveal of our guest for our special 2 o'clock show on Friday. It is a Badger freshman football player of note. It's here. Steinhoffel's Black Friday sale. Jump on huge savings now with doorbusters like any size Sealy mattress for just $99. Dining room tables and sofas for $499 and a queen bed at just $599. Plus, enjoy 36 months, 0% financing on even more deals store-wide. Don't wait for Black Friday. Save today at Steinhoffel's and steinhoffels.com.
It's here, Steinhoffel's Black Friday sale. Get a jump on the savings with amazing doorbusters and closeouts like any size Sealy, $99. A dining table, $4.99. This sofa also $4.99. A queen bed, $5.99. And find even more incredible deals store-wide. Plus, take advantage of 36-month 0% financing. Don't wait for Black Friday. Save today. The Black Friday sale is happening now, only at Steinhoffel's and Steinhoffels.com.
Welcome back to the Jump Around, our Badger dedicated show on ESPN Madison and ESPN Milwaukee's YouTube stream. I'm Jim Rutledge alongside Pablo Iglesias. We are thrilled to be joined by someone that I think I've followed on Twitter for a very long time. Never thought I'd have the opportunity to talk with her, but Nicole Auerbach is on the show. She's from NBC Sports, lead college football and college basketball insider, and with SiriusXM as well. Nicole, thanks for hopping on with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Fantastic. I'm just going to be super simple with it. From the outside, what happened and what's wrong with Badger football? Because we got a million ideas here, but maybe we're just too close to the situation.
Well, I'm sure one of the million ideas is probably right. It's confusing from afar. I mean, this was one of the coaching hires that I think we all thought was a home run hire. It's rare to be so wrong, especially when you feel like, okay, Luke Fickell, Midwest guy, going to a Big Ten school, like match made in heaven. The couple of things that I keep fixating on to figure out at least a little bit about how we got here are, you miss on the offensive coordinator hire. The first one right out of the gate, you decide to try to go a little air raid, like go away from Wisconsin's past, but also the way that the roster was built and the strengths of that roster with the run game. And so, I remember that whole first year just being like, I don't even know what they want to be offensively. Like the identity was so shifting every day, every game, it was different. And sometimes they would run the ball well and you're like, okay, that looks like Wisconsin. Sometimes, they would try to pass. And then of course you have the quarterback injuries that didn't help any of that. So I think the lack of an offensive identity and kind of wasting 2 years trying to change who Wisconsin has always been was something that always jumps out to me. And then I think in general, when you talk to people around Wisconsin, and this was something at a number of Big Ten schools when NIL first became legal, there were a lot of places that wanted to do it differently or didn't want to jump in the same way that like Tennessee, right? They were at the forefront. And there were some other programs that were really aggressive about it. And they were willing to push the boundaries with recruits and prospects out of the portal. And there were some Big Ten schools that weren't really comfortable about that. They didn't want to get into spending wars, or they wanted to reward players that were on the roster and had produced for them before really giving them that paycheck. And so I think, a lot of people are realizing you have to be willing to spend money on prospects to get someone to you and to contend with when you're battling some of these schools for some of the best players. So I think the slow acknowledgement of that and willingness to engage in that has definitely been part of it, and just a lack of aggressiveness in the NIL space. That's going to hurt you in this day and age. But I really think a lot of it has to do with that offensive identity and just being really inept on that side of the ball. And again, some of that is just bad luck with injuries, but some of that is scheme and trying to change too much. But it makes it really hard to quote Luke Fickell for the last couple of weeks. Like if you score 0 points, you don't really put yourself in a position to win games. So it's been a lot of different things, and I'm sure you guys could add to the laundry list. But again, I just kind of want to underscore like how surprised I am that it got to that point. I mean, I really did think that this was a great fit and was going to work really well right out of the gate.
Nicole, going off of that too, you hit it on the head, and we've talked about this on the show, where at the time it felt like that it was the right hire. This was the right hire for Wisconsin. Your assessment as he rounds out his third year, and a two-parter as well, if there even is a shot for him to right this ship, how can he do that?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of schools that would love to not be in this coaching carousel and would like to give their current coach another chance or invest money in the offseason into the roster. And I think Virginia's a really good example of that instead of making a change and moving on from Tony Elliott last year, they put money into the roster. They hit on some of these transfers. Another year in the system, the program continued its build, and here they are, sitting in the catbird seat in the ACC for a playoff spot. So that route does work, and I think a lot of programs are trying to do that before they make a change for a head coach that's going to be very expensive. And certainly it would be at Wisconsin. I mean, $25 million is a lot of money. I know we're hearing buyouts that are in the $50 million range, so we don't think about this as real money. But it's a very expensive decision. And so I take from Chris McIntosh's letter to fans that, he wants to continue to try to do everything from an athletic department standpoint and a money standpoint that they can do to position Luke Fickell to succeed. And, it was a very different kind of statement and letter to fans than the one we got the same day, which was, Florida State's athletic director writing to fans about Mike Norvell and putting out a statement saying, I'm going to evaluate this program at the end of the year. That read to me like, hey, donors, let's get $53 million together by the end of the season. Wisconsin's felt like, hey, we are still trying to work through this, and we want to give Fickell and give this staff all of the tools they need to be competitive in this day and age. And obviously part of that is Chris McIntosh going out on a limb to hire him and in wanting to give him all of that he would need to succeed. But some of it just felt a little bit outdated of saying, we're not doing what we need to do from a resource standpoint. You're in the Big Ten. You want to be nationally competitive. You want to be in the college football playoff picture. So that was a little bit surprising to hear that in the year 2025. But I think, to continue out the rest of the season, obviously you'd like to not lose out. But I think we saw a competitive game against Oregon. And that was, I think, really encouraging after a couple of blowout losses where nothing really was working well. Playing a team that is a top 10 team in the country, close and tight, especially, tighter than we've seen a lot of other teams play them, I think is really encouraging. So I'll be interested to see how they close out the season here. But everyone, tracks the same sort of thing when you're looking at a team in a losing streak or where a coach is on the hot seat. You're looking at how hard those players are playing for that coach. What are signs of progress? What players, are really important to retain that have relationships with the head coach? There's a lot of things like that you're looking at down the stretch. Nicole,
you mentioned something too about pushing money into your roster. I wanted to ask a follow-up on this too. With buyouts, with the rev share now, that system now moving into effect a little bit more. Do you think that changes budgets at all? Is our teams and programs looking more into that too? How does that affect the landscape?
I mean, it's a good question because, you would think that in this day and age, you wouldn't want to pay a $50 million buyout. And we've seen multiple places willing to do that. And of course, these are also schools that have offset language in there. So if James Franklin gets another job, Penn State isn't on the hook for, $46 million or whatever the final figure ends up being. It will be offset by new income for a new job. But there is a willingness to make these changes, even though they're really expensive, because some schools are just too worried about falling behind in the sport that brings in all the money and that drives college athletics forward. So that's part of, I think, the calculation that people are making, even though we've all heard all of these athletic directors and university presidents complain about having no money and having to make tough decisions about scholarships and sports sponsorships. These are the same people who've been saying that because now you can pay your athletes up to $20.5 million directly from rev share each year, yet they're still making these decisions on these buyouts. So it feels like some of the elements of a traditional market don't apply when rich boosters just come in and kind of swoop in and save the day and can help make a coaching change because you're not really, kind of balancing your spending and your income and your costs and all of those things the way that a normal business would. So that's how I explain it. And that's why I think it feels like money isn't real, even though we are talking about a lot of money. There have just been such big decisions that kind of numb us to the impact of, a $25 million, $50 million buyout.
And on that note, and I'm sure you remember pre-NIL days when the Badgers were talking, when Barry Alvarez was here, Brett Bielema not paying assistants or couldn't get the facilities up to par, and they were kind of in the bottom of the Big Ten and paying assistants and some of those things. So they've never been a program that does have money just waiting to be given like a Tennessee or Alabama. And so that is one concern I have. And then the other part of it is that I think Luke Fickell is a good coach, and I agree with you that he made a mistake that set things back with Phil Longo, and they're trying to fix it, and he's had bad injury luck. The problem I worry about here is that this is a brand equity problem, and you're trying to raise funds, and you're trying to get fans to, and I know they go to the stadium and drink lots of beer, number one or number two, yay us, but otherwise, how do you get these businesses to buy in? How do you get these boosters, the Ted Kellners of the world, our biggest booster in this area? Like, how do you get them to buy in if the product ends up being this year 2 wins and at times it looks completely incompetent out there? So, like, that's the concern I have, because I do think in a normal world, Luke Fickell can turn this around, but brand nowadays in everything, but especially college football, is just as important as what you are as a coach.
I think that's definitely contributing to like the lack of patience we're seeing in so many different places. And it's this fear of falling behind and falling out of national relevancy. So I completely understand that. And I remember talking to someone close to the program earlier in the year, and it was after the Maryland game, because that felt like a turning point to me. With the students chanting "Fire Fickell," the way that Maryland dominated that game. And that person was saying that there wasn't an appetite to pay a $25 million buyout. Like, people believed in patience and, another full off season and change. And then they said, well, I mean, like, if they lose out, like a 2-win season, who knows, right? And so I do think that ultimately could change the calculus and decisions. But it does go into what you're saying. I mean, you are talking about investment from your biggest donors, your fans, your engagement. All of those things are really, really important. And that's why we have seen so many mid-season coach firings, because, yes, okay, maybe you'll have a spark like we saw from UCLA for 3 weeks with an interim coach, but that's not really what you're making that decision for. It gives you maybe a little bit jump in the coach market as you're looking for coaches. But I think really it's just to signal to your money people that you're making a change, this was unacceptable, and you're going to move on. And I think in a lot of these situations, Penn State may not get a coach that comes in with a better career winning record than James Franklin had, but you're starting over with someone new. The warts that you've seen in them aren't there. You're starting fresh. And your clock resets as well. And so that's why I think, some of these places are making changes, but I also think there's a lot of schools hoping to avoid this carousel because it's going to be really expensive, and because, there's not enough home run hires to go around. And again, even in this situation for Wisconsin, were they to make a change, I mean, they got a guy that seemed like a home run hire, seemed like a good fit before, and was coming off of, obviously had made the CFP at Cincinnati. So I just think it shows how difficult it is to hire a coach, and maybe, even more how important the hires are and the resources around that coach as well, at least when you're talking like 1, 2, 3 year turnarounds. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Indiana, because I think what Curt Cignetti is doing is affecting that patience everywhere else, because everyone can see what he's done in 1 year and now 2 years. Last year wasn't a fluke. They're going to go back to the college football playoff. It's Indiana. They've lost more games than anybody else in college football history. If they can do this, well, then why can't we? And you have so many different schools and athletic directors and donors saying that. So I think that's also applying some pressure on schools like Wisconsin right now as they're weighing whether or not to make a decision.
Look, Wisconsin once put 83 points on Indiana. Actually, I believe Nate Tice even played in that game. So, like, that was a beatdown of epic proportions. I don't know if the Badgers are going to score 83 points in Big Ten play this year. So, like, that's where these two programs have gotten. And I do think Indiana, they seem to hold a grudge because they did beat up on Brett Bielema after that, when they got a chance to, because Brett was the guy that ran up the score on Indiana back in the day. I could see Wisconsin having an ugly game there. But the other thing with Fickell that's working against them, as you mentioned, it felt like a home run hire. Some people locally were upset. Jim Leonhard, obviously, Wisconsin kid, played for the Badgers. He got them bowl eligible, kind of turned around that team. The players on the team wanted Jim Leonhard, and it's all this Luke Fickell's an outsider, which I'm sure you've heard in other programs. When someone outside the program comes in, it's just as prevalent here. And so a lot of fans are calling for, what happened if we would have had Jim Leonhard, or a guy like Lance Leipold, who was a Badger GA and coached at Whitewater and was a great coach at Whitewater and then Buffalo and obviously Kansas. Or the hot name now, as he just made the news a ton, is Jason Eck at New Mexico. Again, from Wisconsin, lacrosse guy, played for the Badgers, friends with a lot of former Badgers. So 2 parts. Any thoughts on those coaches? But then the other part is, like, how much easier, or is it more difficult for a quote unquote, because I think of Scott Frost coming back, but like a quote unquote one of us guys coming in and coaching, because I think fans are more willing to give a longer leash if they're from Wisconsin or had played for Wisconsin?
I think that's definitely true. We've been talking about that a lot with the Matt Rule conversation about Penn State Open, and does he want to go back to his home, right? And he did see what happened with Scott Frost. If it goes south, after you come home, it's really tough because then it's like you can't go back to your alma mater in the same way. You can't go home in the same way. But I do think in general it helps because what you're describing with the factions and what happened with Jim Leonard and really the Barry Alvarez, like Paul Chris, like the line of coaches, the line of succession, that family, and going away from it, it does create different factions. And I was a student reporter at Michigan when Michigan hired Rich Rodriguez. And it was so similar, where it was like, here's this outsider. So you had a faction of people that were willing to give him a chance. You had a faction of people that were like, TBD, we'll see. And then you had people that were just like, nope, he'll never get us. He'll never understand us. So you do run into that situation when you hire someone that doesn't have ties to your program. I do think some of the best coaches in college football history were hired by places they did not have direct ties to. And so that's always worth pointing out. And I think that, even if we were to say like, hey, this Curt Cignetti hire for Indiana has been amazing, right? That wasn't even necessarily a coach that got hired and we were like, oh my God, slam dunk. Like that's the guy, right? Like there was a 64-year-old head coach getting the only opportunity he could land in the Power Four, and it was at Indiana, right? He couldn't get a bigger job than that. So I think all of that comes into play as we're evaluating this, the idea of winning a press conference and not. I think in this cycle, a lot of places are not going to win the press conference because there's just not enough big name coaches. There's a lot of really good coaches out there, but not necessarily the big names. I love Lance Leipold. I think what he's done at Kansas is remarkable. They have become a real player. Like he's raised the floor so high at Kansas, which is really, really hard to do. And they've invested in that and trying to keep him there as well. Jason Eck, I actually talked to him quite a bit because we had their season opener against Michigan on NBC. He's awesome. Really, really enjoy him. They've had an amazing turnaround this season. And that's just someone who's a great personality and great face of the program. So, those are all, I agree with your general sentiment that I think if you hire someone who you can sell as one of your own, you do win over that faction that was going to be skeptical when you hire an outsider. And so that can help. That could buy you some more patience. It'll also make it more awkward when, Michigan and Jim Harbaugh can't beat Ohio State. You do have to give them a longer leash. Scott Frost probably got another season and a half longer than he really did deserve at Nebraska. So it definitely does come into play.
Nicole, last question for me. Again, the gut reaction when Chris McIntosh put out that letter and also put out his public vote of confidence for Luke Fickell, what did that make you feel more optimistic or more skeptic when that first came out?
Well, it made me think that there wasn't anything imminent, right? Because I think that day and that weekend, we did wonder if Wisconsin was going to make a change with those shutout losses and just how things were going right in season. It made me think that, there was going to be some more patience and some, hope that things could turn around. It did also, again, remind me that Chris McIntosh put his neck out there to make this hire, to go outside of, that Wisconsin lineage. And he really should and is going to give all of the support that he possibly can to make it work. I read that and it made me think that he's thinking about giving him another year and saying, like what we were talking about with Virginia, putting the money into the roster and trying to rebuild that way instead of, paying a big buyout and then having to buy out the rest of the staff and then go hire somebody else. And again, we'll see. A 2-win season can change that calculus, but that was sort of what I was getting out of that statement. It seemed a lot less imminent and more, let's do everything we can from a resource standpoint that we probably should have already been doing to give Luke Fickell every opportunity and maybe treat this year a little bit like year one because you've, hired a different offensive coordinator and tried to go back to certain roots. But again, a two-win season can change all sorts of calculus and all sorts of conversations. But I do think that this is the kind of school that would not want to get into this carousel. It's just going to be so expensive. And I think we've already seen this with the coaches that are out there that have been attached to some of these openings, getting pretty significant raises and extensions. There's just not a lot of big name coaches where you're going to be able to be like, yes, this is a clear upgrade and it's going to work. It is about resetting a clock. So if you do make a change, that's what it is. It's a fresh start, and maybe it is someone with ties to Wisconsin. But I just think it's going to be really hard for like a miracle fix. There is only one Curt Cignetti. That might be a unicorn situation.
And yes, and you're right on that. And I also, the Mac thing, the letter from my part of it was funny because it's like, we don't have enough money to fire our coach, but we're going to raise more money to pay our players. But Chris, you were in charge of not having enough money to fire our coach. So like, it is hard to buy in from a fan's perspective on that. But last question overall here, just putting, I'm not saying Luke Fickell's shoes, but this can't be fun for Luke Fickell. This can't be what he was hoping for. And I remember Gary Anderson just leaving, surprising a lot of people, but it wasn't working when he left here at the same time. So it wasn't completely shocking. It was working, and now we would take it. But back then it's like, oh, this is only 8 wins. Like, this is not good enough. So I do wonder if there's a possibility where the Badgers might say, hey, Luke, like, if your agent wants to talk to another school and you can mitigate the buyout by just going there like Gary went to Oregon State, maybe that's in play. But how hard do you think this is for Luke Fickell? And I'm not saying he wants to be fired, but at some point he's got to be like, this is impossible to clean this whole thing up, and I need a fresh start. We all need a fresh start.
He has not looked like he's enjoying this season. And listen, I don't think anyone is. He's too competitive for that, and I'm sure he's been incredibly frustrated as well. And I think we've heard that come through this season. But, just a lot of the bad injury luck and a lot of things that have been outside of his control that's been really tough. But yeah, you are taking a program that used to, regularly, contend for division, which doesn't exist anymore, and reach Big Ten championship games. And now you're trying to just avoid, losing to Maryland. It's a totally different world. And I think it's got to be immensely frustrating. I think all coaches should be keeping their head on a swivel. I think before it bottomed out completely for James Franklin, my thought on him was that he should look around, he should try to get out. And obviously it got to the point where, Penn State needed to fire him. But I do think sometimes, you do realize things aren't working and you do want to start the clock and get a fresh slate somewhere else. It hasn't been that long at Wisconsin, and I don't think you're become one of these head coaches without believing that you can turn things around, that you can build up programs. But you do need the resources and you need the players. And so, we'll see what happens here. But yeah, I can't imagine he's sleeping very well at night with the way that they've lost some of these games.
Nicole, awesome stuff. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, anytime, guys.
All right. This is The Jump Around on ESPN Wisconsin's YouTube streams.
All right, thanks again to Nicole Auerbach of NBC Sports. A lot of great insight. Love to hear what she's had to say. This will be available as well on the ESPN Madison YouTube channel as a standalone interview, so go back and watch that there. A lot of exciting things, though, too, and like we said, we have another interview, a special one that is going to drop, and make sure if you haven't changed your clocks yet, make sure you do that. 2 p.m. tomorrow. We are dropping special interview with Wisconsin Badgers linebacker. I was expecting the dun-dun-dun, I'm not going to lie. You still have it, Riley.
No,
I'm just kidding.
Not as dramatic this time.
Not as dramatic. Well, still very good stuff. We are going to have Cooper Catalano, a special interview dropping tomorrow. Again, that can be viewed on the ESPN Madison YouTube channel at 2 o'clock. So make sure you set your times. Make sure, again, like I said, you got your clocks at the fallback situation because, look, life's going to be a lot harder if you haven't moved your clocks back in that just yet. But Cooper Catalano, Wisconsin linebacker, I guess we could say he's moved into the starting rotation, getting a lot more reps. Very excited to share that conversation as Wisconsin gets ready to play Washington Saturday. For Jim Rutledge, for Riley Yauk here at the Everlight Solar Studio, I'm Pablo Iglesias. This has been The Jump Around, a Badger-dedicated show.